Welcome back, moms and educators. I know it's been a minute. So much has been going on, but I am back and I'm so excited because I have a lot of great stuff coming your way in the coming weeks. With school getting ready to start in the next week, or maybe you've already started, I have been helping a lot of my friends pick out books to incorporate in their back to school units. So I thought it would be a good idea to just kind of share some of the books that I've got on hand, but that you may also have or might have time to check out from your library. So the first book, I just got this book. If you haven't gotten it, it's LeBron James's book, I Promise. Representation is important. This book has so many powerful words and beautiful pictures. I think it's a great book to start the school year off with. It just talks about how we're going to treat each other and the promises that they make to themselves about the kind of student that they want to be. So I Promise is the first one. Peter Reynolds' book, Say Something. We've talked about this book, or I've talked about this book before on my Mocha Mommy YouTube channel, and it just talks about using your voice for good. And this is always also like a really good book to use at the start of the school year to kind of just talk about like how we want to use our voices and how we want to treat one another. This book is an oldie but goodie, and it's called Cookies, Bite-Sized Life Lessons, and it breaks down character traits using cookies. And I used to read this to my third graders, and then I would always have like chocolate chip cookies to hand out at the end. I know it's different now that we're in a virtual climate, but it's still a really great read aloud for the first week. Or if you're starting with character traits for younger kids, it's a great book to use. And then they came out with a second book shortly after called Sugar Cookies, Sweet Lessons on Love, same concept, character traits, but that teach about love and caring for people. We're All Wonders. It is the picture book that tells the story of Augie from the book Wonder. And so if your little guys or your scholars are too big for wonder, this would be a great one that just talks about choosing kindness, especially in a world where everyone is not the same. I love this book, I Am Enough by Grace Byers. Again, it speaks to just like liking yourself, liking who you are as a person, and instilling confidence into our scholars and our kids. I read this book to my little guy when he was heading to kindergarten luck, and it's about a penny. And after I finished reading it to him, I gave him a penny to take with him to kindergarten that first day. There's also is it the Prince or the King of Kindergarten? That's also a really good one if you're teaching kindergarten kids this year. Starting school for the first time, or starting a new school, or even going to a new grade can be so anxiety ridden, and especially during a virtual climate. So Wembley Worried is always a good one. You know, Wembley is worried about everything. He starts a new school and he's so nervous. This is a great one. Oldie but goodie is The Kissing Hand. Again, the story of a little raccoon who's so nervous to go to school, but his mother tells him that he can take her love with him wherever he goes. Beautiful book. So that's awesome. One of my all-time favorites. I Like Myself, and how we just celebrate each other and our differences and how proud we should be of ourselves is always a good one. To follow up with I Like Myself, the Molly Lou Mellon books. If you don't know anything about Molly Lou Mellon, she's little, she's strong, but she is mighty. And she moves to a new town and she has to say goodbye to all of her friends, and had to start a new school. And so if you got some new students, this is a good one. And then to have a series in your library, Have Fun, Molly Lou Mellon just talks about how she uses her imagination. It's just good to have the both of them. I wanted to also select some books that speak to diversity and how people have to just love who they are. So these last books that I've picked have to do with just that. I love all books by Kevin Hinks. So Chrysanthemum is always amazing. She loves her name, but she goes to school and the girls pick on her name, and it just goes to show whatever your name is, you should really love it and embrace it, and you shouldn't let anybody tell you differently. The Name Jar is another book about names, and this is about a student who comes from Korea to the United States, and she's anxious about making new names, and making new friends, and she's worried that no one will be able to pronounce her name. And so instead of introducing herself on the first day, she decides to pick a new name. Again, a story about just embracing difference and loving themselves. Another book that I love is Thunder Boy Jr. It's a book about a little boy who's named after his dad, and he just says he wants his own name. He wants it to be different, and towards the end of the book, you find out that like he gets to pick his own name that's unique and special to him. Island Born. It's the story of a little girl and how she embraces her Hispanic culture. I don't know where you are or what schools you're in, but like there's nothing like having a book that speaks to your own culture. The next book that I have to consider including in your library is the book The Proudest Blue. It's the story of hijab and family, and oftentimes families that wear hijabs, or girls who wear hijabs to school, don't necessarily talk a lot about like why or the pride that comes with wearing it. And I really love this book about two sisters. The oldest sister is heading to school for the first day of school with her new hijab, and how the little sister hears people taunting and teasing and making fun of, but through her eyes you learn why the hijab is so important to their culture. So The Proudest Blue, I would suggest adding into your library. What Does It Mean to Be Kind? This is a pretty basic book about kindness and how to be kind to a new student in class. And it starts off with one little girl. She has got one act of kindness, and it kind of spreads throughout the whole classroom and into the community, and how it magically shifts everyone's understanding and acts of what it means to be kind. So What Does It Mean to Be Kind is a great book. And then knowing that the first week of school, next week especially, runs right into September 11th, I also pulled 3 books that I've used in the past to kind of speak to 9/11. Understanding that just every kid that's in your class this year, every kid going to kindergarten or 5th grade, or even, let's see, some of the kids in high school were not even born when 9/11 happened. So one book is called September Roses, and it's about a pair of sisters that were heading to New York on that dreadful day for a rose competition, a rose expo, and they had 2,400 boxes of 2,400 roses in boxes, but they got stranded in an airport because of the hijacking, and they ended up going down near the site of the crash, and they were able to set up a tribute with their roses for 9/11. One of the books that I use year after year is Fireboat, and it's the heroic adventures of the John J. Harvey, which was a fireboat built and was retired. And on that, at the beginning of the book, it talks about like it being a mighty fireboat that was used in New York City and then had to be retired. And then a group of friends decided some years later to fix it up and bring it back to life. And on 9/11, they were looking for not only firefighters and police officers showed up to support that day, but they were able to pull the boats up. And here's a picture right here. Pull boats up right along the Hudson and help provide supplies. And the John J. Harvey was one of those boats. And so Fireboat is one of my all-time 9/11 book favorites. And then this book, The Little Chapel That Stood, might be a great option because this is the story of the church, the old St. Paul Chapel in New York City, and it speaks at the beginning of the book about the history of the book. And if your kids watched Hamilton this summer, like my kids did, like I did, it says in here that this is where he's buried, at this chapel, so kind of like building some background knowledge. But for centuries past, the city grew around the church, and part of what grew around it were the Twin Towers. And on that day when the planes crashed, that chapel, I'm trying to get to the page where it shows, but not the old chapel of Old St. Paul. Not a chandelier, not a brick, nothing was damaged that day. And it becomes a space during recovery and rescue that they used this, the chapel for the rescue teams, firefighters, police officers. They came there to, rest, to get coffee. And I just love that. And I mean, we do know that on that day, it wasn't just those two buildings that ended up going down. And so a lot of the buildings around the World Trade Center also went down. And so for this little chapel to still have stood just is a testament. So those are the book suggestions that I have to incorporate for back to school. I'm wishing everyone love and light in the coming weeks, the coming days. The first day, it's going to be different. Especially in our new normal, but I know that you guys are gonna kill it. I look forward to posting some new videos in the coming days and weeks. We have September is HBCU month, and I am a Hampton University grad, and so I have a bunch of stuff planned in honor of HBCUs in September and for back to school. So as always, make sure you're drinking your coffee, that you are keeping yourself sane, and you're keeping the kids busy. Well, I guess we don't have to keep them busy anymore. We now need to get them back on some type of schedule so they can go back to school and be successful. So I'm wishing all of you a happy start to the year. Happy first day, teachers. Happy first day, moms. And happy first day to all the kids, be it in a hybrid model, in-person model, or virtual. And I will see you all soon.